Welcome back to part 2, How We Learn, or Vital Principles of Learning. So here's some strategies you can adopt. You can practice recognizing the big ideas. When you come across some lesson or some reading, what you want to do is you want to look for ways to connect it to larger ideas, new schema for your brain. For example, if we're learning about George Stinney Jr., the young black man who was electrocuted on June 16, 1944, after having been wrongfully charged with killing 2 young white girls, you can sort of organize George Stinney Jr. in with Tamir Rice and George Floyd and all of those that you know about who have been apparently wrongfully and in an extrajudicial, or in Stinney's case, in a judicial proceeding, executed in some connection with their race. So look for ways to connect an idea with a bigger idea. And that way it'll hold on. Now, I always say that the best way to be sure that you learn something is to explain it to others. For example, if you're in this class with someone else and you want to talk about a particular lesson or a particular idea that caught your fancy, explain it to that person who wasn't in the class. And if you can explain it to that person, then you clearly understand the material. You've clearly taken all the messages and all the images. Now, the other thing I suggest you do is look to connect lessons among classes. Historically, people used to get notebooks. They get spiral notebooks, and they'd write notes. Sociology, 1,000. Theology, 1,000. English composition. All these separate courses. And people tended to distinguish and differentiate as much as the notebooks were differentiated. If you look for a way to connect a lesson we get in here with a lesson you've had in sociology, or if it prompts you to recall something that you had in psychology or in logic, that's a way to improve your ability to recall these things. Again, minimize sensory overload. That's going to be a great way for you to focus in on what's really important. Now, this is one of my favorite parts of the lesson. Look to improve your reading skills. This is a good time when you're an 18 or 19-year-old college freshman to look to do that. Now, what does it mean to vocalize? If you read a particular page or passage and you are forming and pronouncing every single word as you read it in your mind, then you will never read any faster than about 150, 180 words a minute, which is sort of average conversational pace. You'd be surprised, even without moving your lips, when you read those words, word for word, and pronounce them in your head, it slows you up. Now, when I was in high school, I took this speed reading course. President Kennedy was real big in speed reading, and so all of us looked to emulate him. This was actually a course that was developed for the Air Force, and the Air Force was looking to see what the limits were for their pilots to be able to train them to recognize hostile aircraft and friendly aircraft in just an instant. So what they did is they created this program, and the way they developed our skills is they would put us in a dark room in the classroom, and they would flash up a number on the screen, and the number would be like a 8 or 9 digit number. So because it's a number, you can't pronounce it. We'd see it for 100th of a second, and then we'd write down as many digits as we could remember, and we'd do that again and again and again, a kind of maintenance rehearsal. And you'd be surprised when you train yourself to do that, how well it works. I'll give you another example from the world of sports. Some years ago, the women's softball team of the United States Olympic team got together for their first practice, and the coach was out there with the pitching machine, and she would put some yellow softballs and some white softballs, and she told the young ladies, I want you, as soon as the machine pitches it, to shout out whether it's white or yellow. And the ladies picked that up pretty quickly. And then she put a letter on each of these softballs, A, B, C, whatever it was, and she said to them, when the thing is pitched, I want you to shout out the letter. And they said, we'll never be able to do this. But in fact, by training their powers of concentration, they could. I'm always amazed that the best ball players, softball, baseball players, can actually watch the ball and see its rotation. There's a kind of human skill that slows down things that are happening in quick time so that they can see. Stan Musial, who was a great ball player in the 20th century, people used to ask him about hitting. How do you hit the curveball? He said, well, it's coming in. I just watch the way it rotates. That is a gift. You may not have that gift to be able to watch the rotating curveball, but you can train yourself to read better and to read faster. Some years ago when I did this course, I got the approval of the dean to offer a speed reading course that was online. It cost something. We bought a license. And every single student who came in there was reading 150, 200, 250 words a minute. Everybody doubled or tripled their speed because they did this course online, and they were able to develop those skills of rapid recognition. Back to my course, what they would do after we did the numbers is they would do the same sort of principle with letters. They would take a line of a passage, and they would show us half a line at a time, boom, boom, highlighted. And then they would go a little faster and a little faster. Gradually, they would show us a line of type at a time. And we developed the ability to read it without pronouncing it. And we were reading 2,000 word selections, and these were not things we knew something about. It was the mating habits of seals or in the Arctic or something. So it wasn't something common knowledge. But we were able to pick up some pretty good speeds in that reading material. So when we do the RRUs, I'm going to ask you to do the reading that I assign and to sort of process it in three ways. The first, and I developed this in graduate school because I knew at age 43, going back to school, I'd have to develop some new skills. So what I did is I took out a piece of paper, I'd write down the name of the book, the name of the chapter, and then I would start reading. And I'd read and I'd say, okay, I already know this. I don't need to take a note. And then I'd come to something that I didn't know. And clearly this something was important to the author's central point or was going to help me remember it. So I'd write that down. I'd put the page number in the margin, and I processed it that way. Processed it not only through my eyes, but through my hand, as well as giving me a way to recall it. And then the final way I'd process it is I'd read something, and that would cause me to form a question in my mind. So I'd write down this question on my note paper. I'd put a little question mark in the corner, in the margin, and that would give me something to use in class or to develop my curiosity as I read further. So you read my little RRU memorandum in the syllabus, as I hope you already have, and you'll get that idea. I want you to read faster, I want you to read more, and I want you to read more broadly. You should be reading all kinds of things, not just Sports Illustrated or whatever your favorite magazine is, or not just online. You should be going over the library, looking at some of the magazines, the periodicals that we get, and just read strange things because it will be useful to you. Now, if you want to get more out of class, very simple first rule, put more into class. Come prepared, come with a question, come with a doubt, come with an idea. Read the assignments and then read more than what's assigned. Ask and answer questions. The best defense against my asking you a question in class is you asking me a question. If you do, I'll know that you're thinking, and I'll be very pleased with that. And use the class. I don't expect you to have all the answers or have all these things thought out, but what I like to say is when we have a discussion in class, we're thinking out loud, and that's important. I already talked about finding a refuge to study. Now, will college change you? It might. But college is not a passive experience. This is not an audience thing. This is not like watching television. You need to come and interact with the students and with the professors. And if you put more into it actively, then more will happen. Remember, you only spend about 10% of your week here in the classroom. Maybe 20% if you count homework. What do you do with the other 80% of your time? Whose seat do you have? Some bright young person elsewhere who doesn't have the advantages you do of being here at Benedictine College, but who really wish they could be, and who would bring so much more to it than you do. So put yourself out, tax yourself a little bit. Now, each of you has varied gifts. I remember my first night in graduate school, Father Pat Murphy said to us, if you're a good reader, I want you to, and not such a good writer, I want you to write more and read less, and vice versa. If you're a good public speaker, I want you to listen more. So take an appraisal of what your gifts are, and then work to compensate and to develop the gifts that you don't have with such, extravagance. Calculate, analyze, pursue goals. Now, if we were in the classroom, I would ask for your objections, your anxieties, your own life lessons, and your insights. What you could do now, though, if you have any as a result of listening to these lessons, is make yourself a few notes. That'd be a good idea. This is one of my own sayings. Activity is no substitute for accomplishment. Don't tell me how busy you've been. Tell me or show me what you've achieved. Don't tell me how late you stayed up working on the assignment. Show me a great assignment that is well formed, that is well edited, that speaks to the point. That's what impresses me. Remember, you're not going to remember everything, but you don't need to forget everything either. These are some vital principles of learning. How we learn, Part 2.